You can take generative patches into all sorts of directions, but for me it's about finding a mood that kind of feels like taking a bath. Finding a calming state that has just enough variation and movement to keep the mind occupied tracing the sound. I made a lot of videos with patch ideas, including some where I talk about concepts to drive a generative patch. But it's a different thing to bring all those ideas together into something that works. For this video, I explain a single patch from start to finish. I picked an idea that's relatively simple, but it's effective and holds a lot of fun patch tricks. Of course, I do this on my basics case, so there are no big expensive dedicated things like generative sequencers or granular processors. I'm just using core building blocks. I want to give a huge thanks to my patrons for funding this channel. If you like to support my work as well, or you want to get access to PDF sheets with hundreds of patch ideas I used in my videos, have a look at my Patreon. But now, let's dive right in. In essence, this generative patch is made with 2 synth voices and a lot of modulation. The 2 synth voices are very simple. One is made with 2 saw wave oscillators, a mixer, low pass filter and VCA, and the other with a single oscillator, wavefolder, low pass filter and VCA. The dual oscillator setup is tuned to different notes to create 2-note chords. And the single oscillator voice I'll call the lead voice. To create some generative melodies, I used the Dupfer dual quantizer. These are 2 independent quantizers, but they both follow the same scale settings. One quantizer is used to tune only one of the oscillators in the chord voice. The other oscillator is droning at a fixed note. When one of the oscillators changes notes, different 2-note chords are created. A slow looping attack decay envelope is used to feed the quantizer. The second quantizer tunes the lead voice, again with a slow looping envelope as the input, but this time through a mixer, so more input signals can be added. Now both voices create tuned tonal variations. This is pretty messy without a signal to drive or sync the whole setup. So here are the 2 voices with a bit of extra patching space and an LFO used as master clock. The square wave is driving a clock divider, so multiple divisions can be used to drive different elements of the patch. Here prime divisions are used, but other divisions can work just as well. A slow division is triggering the quantizer of the dual oscillator voice to create new chords with a steady slow pace. A fast division is driving a simple 8-step sequencer sent to the mix feeding the lead voice quantizer. Another division is reversing that sequence for variations. And because the sequence is mixed with a slow looping envelope, the sequence drifts up and down over time. Let's add some envelopes to bring a bit more structure to the core voices. The slow gate triggering the chord voice quantizer is also gating an ADSR envelope opening the filter of that voice. And the quantizer's trigger output of the lead voice is triggering a short plucky attack decay envelope. However, that envelope isn't sent to the filter directly but through a panner first. One output is modulating the filter of the lead voice and the other output the filter of the chord voice. The panner is modulated with a slow LFO, swinging the balance from voice to voice to create interesting dynamics. The balance of the panner is set to favor the lead voice and the speed of the LFO set to slow waves. Keep in mind that things like granular effects or some modulated samples in the background can add a lot to a core setup like this, but for now let's stick to these 2 voices. And just in case you don't know, I run 2 YouTube channels. Have a look at my channel with music only if you want to know what I do with all this stuff in my free time. I just started uploading new recordings again. The next step in this patch is adding slow evolving movement to the voices. Of course, I'm using the random Bezier waves for this, the module I designed with ADAC. It's absolutely great for slow, smooth signals like this, but I promise to use simple tools, so I won't use any of its deep modulation options. You can use slewed random voltages to approximate the effect, but you should definitely have a look at the module if you like this sort of patching. To create smooth changes in the overall intensity of the patch, filter modulation is used. A mixer is patched before each of the filter frequency inputs, so multiple modulation sources can be stacked. Different outputs of the random Bezier waves are shown as individual building blocks, starting with a very slow random voltage modulating both filters at the same time. I'm using the matrix mixer as two 3-to-1 mixers, with the random voltage modulating both voices in the same way. In this setup, the random voltage controls the presence of the voices. Here it's pretty fast to show the effect, but the speed of the signal is turned down a lot in the next clips, so the sound evolves slowly. To add more depth to that, a medium speed random voltage is added. This is modulating one voice directly and the other through an inverter. Of course, this is added to the slow random voltage modulating the filter as well. Here's the effect of the slow random voltage on the filters. With the added faster random signal to both filters, the result per voice looks like this. The slow random signal is still controlling the overall presence of the sound. But within those bigger slow waves, the two voices subtly shift attention with a faster pace. This creates interest to both short and long-term movement. And remember, the two envelopes are still added to this. To create a little more tension in the whole setup, an average output of both random signals is used to modulate the master clock speed just a little bit. Because an average signal is used, the clock speed is related to the presence of the voices, tying the behavior of the entire patch together in a nice way. To accent that, an inverted version of the average signal is used to modulate the attack and decay times of the blocky envelope. Remember, this signal is panned with an unrelated LFO, so it can create a lot of different sounds. What's important when dialing in all these random voltages is that they can push the patch to reach low or quiet moments, places where there isn't happening so much. This creates dynamic range, anticipation and room to breathe for the listener. A patch that's just full of strong present sounds gets boring very fast, even if those sounds are good. The patch is starting to come together, but let's add a bit more sonic variety to the voices. This works especially well when the sounds can have different phases or states. There are many options for this, and if you like this video, let me know. I'm happy to show other core setups with different ingredients. A classic option though is using sample and hold modules. Here one of them is send noise as the sample input, triggered with a very slow clock division. The result is sent through a slew limiter to create sliding changes from each sampled value to the next before it's held for some time. Here the slewed signal is opening a VCA, and the second output of the drone oscillator, a sine wave, is sent to the input of that VCA. The output is added to the mix of signals modulating the filters of both voices. This creates different levels of filter FM for added sonic character. This kind of modulation is where patches can come to life. The sample and hold value controls the metallic character of both voices, but it's unrelated to the overall filter modulation and voice presence. This is hard to show in a short clip because it might change the character of an entire wave of higher voice presence, but it also might not be present at all, and that's the idea. having both signals that control the global movement and signals that change the character of the sound in a slow way. That makes it worse to listen to another wave of the patch and see what happens. Here's the exact same trick for a different effect. A copy of the white noise is sent to a second sample and hold module triggered with another slow division. Again sent through a slew limiter, but here used to set different levels of filter resonance in the chord voice. This isn't done to extreme, just to change the character of the voice a bit, and only to create high resonant sounds every now and then. On top of that, a slow unsynced LFO is modulating the full parameter of the wave folder to create slow character changes in the lead voice. And a weird trick, the triangle wave output of the LFO used as master clock is used to modulate the symmetry input of the wave folder. This adds a slight oscillator drift sort of sound to the lead voice. And there you have it. That's the whole patch. I still consider this a relatively simple patch. Even in my core system there are fun generative tools like switches, crossfaders and polarizers that are unused. However, to expand on this patch, it also makes sense to add more voices, and that requires a lot more modules. Again though, some more effects and or a sample player or two could go a long way. It really helps me if you let me know if this was a fun video for you. I'm happy to make more of these if people like the format. I'll let this patch run for a little bit longer for people interested, but do check out some of my other videos about generative music if you like to dive deeper. And as always, smashing that like and subscribe button really helps my channel reach a bigger audience. But that's all the info in this video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.